Good morning. It is time to fix the Miata. What had happened is it was raining. I was at the airport. There was no one there. I may or may not have done a little donut or two, and then it started having a really bad misfire. So I'm going to try to diagnose that misfire. And the first thing I'm going to do is unplug one of the plug wires and start it until I see which cylinder is misfiring. And by that, I mean if I unplug the plug wire and the misfire is worse, it's not running on two cylinders, it'll run terrible. So when I unplug the plug wire that's misfiring, it shouldn't get any worse, but it shouldn't be any better either. I was going to use my temperature sensor to look at the exhaust and find which one it is that way, but the exhaust is covered by a heat shield, so that's not going to work. But once I find which cylinder is misfiring, then I'm going to go ahead and pull all the plugs out just to make sure it's not something stupid like a fouled plug. I might crank it and see if the plugs are sparking, do all of that stuff, and just slowly but surely diagnose it. After I fix the misfire, I need to pull the idle control valve and clean the idle control valve because it surges. I also need to clean out the power valve on the brake booster because that's causing issues. The car is set for 17 years. These things happen. And then I need to replace some of the rubber boots inside the car. So stick around and I'm going to do all of that. Well, with that, I'm almost positive it's number 2, and it is sparking, so I'm gonna pull the plugs out. I think I might have immediately found the problem. Sometimes it's the simplest things. If you look at the plug wire, I've kind of got my light, there's a arc trail right here where it looks like this was arcing really bad. And I realize I pulled it out of the cylinder, but it wouldn't have arced that much that quick, and I can see the arcing down inside the head. So it might have just been a bad plug wire. So I'm gonna go ahead and order a set of those and replace them and see if the misfire gets fixed. But first I'm gonna go ahead and pull the plugs out just to check the condition of the cylinders and the plugs themselves, because I did drive it home. So there's that. But anyways, let me pull these plugs out and we'll see what it looks like. Voila. Well, I've got the plugs out. You can see number 2 is a little darker than the rest. The camera's not really going to focus, but they all look pretty good, which I would expect because they've only got 44,000 miles on them, and probably not even that. I think the previous owner replaced them. So I ordered a new set of plug wires. I'll throw those in there, see if I can fix it. I'm going to clean those plugs up a little bit before I do put them back in. I want to issue you a little small piece of caution. What I did, you saw me running the engine and pulling the plug wires real quick to find the misfire. I don't recommend that very strongly. And if you do it, if you do that, I recommend that you do that very, very briefly. Ignition systems are very, very high tension, very, very high power, and that is a really good way to very quickly burn up a coil, a capacitor, or any of the other components inside the system. They really work best when everything is connected. Even a fouled plug is less bad than what I did, because a fouled plug still completes the circuit. If you disconnect the plug wire, all of that potential energy, 20,000, 25,000 volts, whatever it is, has nowhere to go. And when you have that much voltage, it's a lot of power, it's going to find a place to go. So it's going to jump somewhere else. The plug wire inside the coil, it might short the coil, who knows. So it's a really bad idea to unplug things like that for an extended period of time. So if you're going to do that, do it like I did, just pull it real quick and put it right back on, just long enough to make sure that, or just long enough to see that that was the misfire. So anyways, I'm going to clean those up, put those back in. I'll put the plug wires in and see if that fixes it. In the meantime, I'm going to go tell my wife the situation and see what she's doing, because I know she's cleaning the house, but we got to go to Hondo later anyways. I've got to change some transmission boots. I've still got to clean the idle air control valve. So I do have other things to do. I am going to clean these plugs up and get them put back in. You have now reached the portion of this program called Advice with Bryce. And my advice today is pretty simple. If you own a NA Mazda Miata, actually even an NB Mazda Miata, it is crucially important that when you put the spark plugs in, you torque them to the proper spec. I don't know if the NCs have the same problem, but I know the NAs do, which is if the plugs are just even the smallest amount loose, what will happen is they will sort of vibrate inside their threads and then go bloop and liberate themselves out of the top of the cylinder head. It happened to Jeremy Clarkson when they did the Three Wise Men Christmas special in his Miata. So if you want to know what it looks like, that's what it looks like. But it happened to me in my first Miata because I was young and stupid. It's a common problem with the early Miatas if you don't properly torque the plugs. So my advice to you is to properly torque them. The torque is only 11 to 17 foot-pounds, I believe is the manual. I usually just split the difference and go about 15 foot-pounds. So I do have my torque wrench here, and I will torque these in place here in just a second. But crucially important, also put a little bit of anti-seize on the threads. You're gonna thank yourself for that. The reason you use anti-seize is, if you didn't already know this, the plugs expand and contract, and so does the cylinder head. But since the cylinder head is aluminum and the plugs are steel, they expand and contract at different rates. And over time, after being in there for 100,000 miles, it causes the plugs to seize. That's why you put anti-seize in between them and the threads, just to keep things from getting locked up, so that in 10 years when you decide to pull the plugs out, they don't all strip. I'm going to snug them all. Just a little. Okay, so now is the portion of the video where I have to change these boots. And I will admit to you that I can pull a Miata center console in about 5 minutes. It's pretty easy. That's my phone mount, by the way. I put it on the cigarette tray so I can keep it out of my way, because I'm brilliant. I'm going to set all of this up here on, I guess you could call it the package tray. Oh, there's my wheel lock. I'm probably going to need that. Zip ties, 'cause you never know when you're going to need zip ties. I don't think there's one there. No, there's not. So then it's just 1, 2, whoops, this came out. 3, 4, and 5. Ah! Almost dropped that one. Got him. That's going to be fun to fish out of there. I just dropped it down inside the e-brake. Yay. It's alright. I need to put the passenger seat back in anyways. Okay, get that. Stay. I'm just going to gently lift up and forward. Roll that over. Come on, there we go. Come on. You want to come out of there. I know you do. You son of a bitch. There we go. All right. There you go. Center console is out. A lot of people like to remove the center console and just run without one. They'll put like a little plate right here so they feel like they have a little more room. I'm not a fan. I actually like the center console. I like being able to set my arm in it. But here is my Miata's dirty secret. Yeah, that's no good. But I've got new ones, so I'm gonna put the new ones in. This one down here is torn too, and some transmission fluid leaks out. So I'm gonna go ahead and change both of those, as well as the shift bushing. All right, this is pretty easy. Everything's a 10mm because it's a Mazda, so that comes off, gets thrown away, and then this one comes off and you can throw it away. So I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna get new transmission fluid for it as well, and I will clean out the transmission, but that's a later problem. I've also, you can see where the previous owner dynamatted it. I managed to get the screw that had fallen in here out. And I'll be honest, I actually had a deleted console on my first Miata. I fabricated a fiberglass sort of overlay just to go over the shifter and the boot. It had like a little relief cut for the e-brake. It stopped right about here. It left all this back part open, and I hated it. I did like probably 2 or 3 days worth of work to make a fiberglass shorty console and painted it. It looked really good, and then I pretended for the longest time. I was like, oh yeah, this is so great. I made it from scratch. I love it. But I remember like the entire time I hated it because I couldn't rest my arm on anything. So if you're gonna do a deleted console, I would recommend just taking the console out and seeing how you like it. And if you don't like it, then just put the console back in. I would not spend money on a deleted center console or like one of those carbon fiber shorties until you know for sure it's what you're going to want. Because I've modified my vehicles plenty times in the past and thought, oh, this is the greatest idea in the world. And then after I did the modification, I was like, I hate this. So my advice to you is maybe try it first before you decide to modify it and then realize that you don't like it. I don't know if you can see it, but there's a bunch of plastic pieces in there. And I think they're from that centering bushing. So I didn't want to order a full rebuild kit for this thing. I just got a new bushing thinking that was all it needed. But I think I'm also going to need to replace this piece here. So I'll get it put back together. I might try to go ahead and replace this rubber piece. But that's annoying. I'm going to leave the shifter where it is. I went ahead and ordered the new plastic bushing that's all destroyed. I pulled it out so that it's not clogging things up. This way I can at least move the car. I'm not going to drive it like that, but I can park it back in its bay. But I got new plug wires from the local parts store, so I'm going to go ahead and install those. Fingers crossed that it actually solves the problem, because if it doesn't solve the problem, I know it's probably not a spark issue, and it's more than likely a fuel injector issue, in which case I'm going to dump a bunch of seafoam in it and hope that it fixes itself. I don't like the way those went on. Here's the old ones. They've almost got like a tapered thing in here, and then they've got like this chamfer. The new ones don't have that. They popped in place, but I don't know. We'll see if it starts. We'll see how it runs. I might end up changing those later. They're Omni Spark. I don't know. It says OEM, but we'll see. It's not misfiring anymore. I went and drove it. Ran okay, so I drove okay, minus the shifter because it's missing that one bushing. I'm sure when I get that one bushing in there, it'll shift a lot better. It's never really wanted to go into reverse, and that seems to be heightened by the fact that the bushing is missing. It could also be because I put a brash bushing in it, but I'm going to disassemble when I get those bushings in. I'm going to take apart the turret, as they call it, and make sure that there's not any plastic pieces hiding in there anywhere, keeping things from moving. So I'll get all that cleaned out, and I've got brand new transmission fluid over there. I'll refill the transmission fluid. Now, I got to find a way to get this idle air control valve out, because I think the idle air control valve is bad because it surges. So I'm going to take this charge pipe off, and I think that's it right there. So we'll see how this goes. So, got the throttle body taken off. I didn't take it all the way out because it's weird. It has coolant lines going to it for the idle air control valve. It's also got a vacuum line going to it, and I didn't feel like topping off the coolant, so I didn't take those off. I just kind of left it in place, sprayed it out really good with some throttle body cleaner, and we'll see if that fixed the problem. Right now, I'm going to go ahead and reset the check engine light. I think the easiest way to do that is probably just take the ground terminal off the battery. I do have my scan tool, but don't tell anyone this, I left it at work, and I don't go back to work for another 10 days or so. So I'm just going to go ahead and disconnect the battery. That should reset the ECM, should reset all the misfire codes and everything else. Yeah, that's going to do it all for this video. In the next video, I got to get the Mustang fixed. Kind of a weird issue. It runs, everything's fine, but one of the pushrod guide plates is out of alignment, and it's causing some adverse wear, and it could cause a huge issue. So I have it on the charger right now, but I'm going to get the Mustang fixed, wrapped up, so I can get my mower out, because like I said, I need to mow my grass. So if you enjoyed the video, make sure you leave us a like, leave us a comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. As always, go build something and be easy.